Hey Exiles! Amidst the slew of new information about Path of Exile 2, the third edict coming out the past few days, there has been a bunch of brand new info about the immediate future of PoE 2 that has just gone completely unnoticed. It's emerged from a few interviews, including my own, one with Destin that only has a few thousand views right now, DM's interview, and more. This video is not concerning the third edict particularly, it's more so tackling what is coming in 0.4, which drops December of this year and beyond, 0.5 and 0.6, and then potentially 1.0. So if you've missed that, you didn't watch all these 1-2 hour plus long interviews, this video has you covered. And as always, timestamps are in the description below. Let's kick it off with a satisfying one. The Druid. This is confirmed to be coming in patch 0.4, which, as I just said, drops in December. This happened in the Destin interview with Jonathan Rogers. Jonathan said in the DM interview that the reason the Druid was cut was due to animation concerns. It sounds like everything else is good to go for this class, but the animations with the various animal forms, of which we know there are 3, are just too troubling, and they decided to send their animators to do other things instead of spending time on the Druid. However, for December, we are getting the Druid. This means we are getting a huge Christmas present. I'm so happy. Sticking on the topic of other new classes, in the Ziggy D interview, Jonathan and Mark also mentioned they cannot ship Path of Exile 2, meaning they can't go to 1.0 without the game having swords and therefore the duelist class, right? And it is a shame. However, it sounds like it might be a bit of time before we get that, right? Brief interlude for today's sponsor, ExitLag. In a fast-paced game like Path of Exile 2, every frame matters, every millisecond counts. If you look away, you're dead, and a lot of the times, you don't know what even happened. And sometimes you don't even need to look away, you just need to lag for that one little second. With ExitLag, you are controlling the connection. They have a suite of actually powerful, useful AI features that allow you to optimize your routes and connections to servers across the globe. And due to their multi-path connection, if one route fails, another will take its place. Even with my stellar internet connection, I turned on ExitLag and I did see minor improvements to both my frame rates and my actual ping. And if you want to tinker with all the settings, they have a very in-depth and customizable diagnostic center. There's also numerous games you can use this with, like Path of Exile 2 or 2,000 others. It doesn't matter if you are struggling through the campaign in Path of Exile 2, zooming through endgame maps, it's going to be super useful and it's going to improve your overall gaming experience. And luckily, they are running a Gamer Month promotion in which you can get up to 72% off your plan. You can use the barcode on screen or use the code TRI, T-R-I, to get your super discount today. This is a limited time offer, so stop freezing up and get ExitLag. And let's get back to the video. Well, in all these interviews, we also learned how GGG sees Path of Exile 2 shipping into 1.0, meaning when it goes free to play. Jonathan has admitted it's not happening in 2025. However, early 2026, meaning March 2026 or August 2026, is likely. However, what are the terms for shipping to 1.0 now? It's not having all the classes in the game. It's having all 6 acts and having the game in a good state of balance, meaning all of the players are satisfied. Will that actually ever happen? I reckon not. I think the real metrics for success will be ongoing supporter pack sales, reviews, the overall consensus of the community, and I don't think they're going to be dragged down if there are outliers, even if they are loud outliers that are hating on the game and not liking its direction. Jonathan also said that Act 6 might ship with the 1.0 launch. They want to test Act 5 while in early access because it is a lengthy, a girthy act, but Act 6, it's quick, it's concise, and it's action-packed. It's movement from beginning to end. You are zooming. It's like an action movie, it sounds like. So they're okay with actually shipping that with 1.0. If that will actually happen, well, we'll find out next year, it seems. Honestly, I think we're going to get the full release in December of 2026, with potentially an ExileCon in November. Although I can see the case for August being made, because if they end up shipping in December, that's going to be really rough because that's Christmas time, that's a bunch of vacation happening for GGG, that's their summer in New Zealand. So they probably want a full force in the office or remote ready to go when they do go into free to play. There's going to be a lot of players, as we'll likely see on this free to play launch weekend for 0.3 once the game goes into 1.0. So maybe August is the right date. All of this is to say the team is not rushing to the finish line with finishing early access. Yes, they have changed the terms. They just want the campaign and the game to be in a good state of balance, not to have all the classes and all the Ascendancy classes out, but it doesn't seem like they're in a rush. They want to make sure the game is actually in an excellent state before they expose it to a wide net of players. And I just mentioned Ascendancy classes there. Well, more are coming, and many of them were actually pretty close to being finished. They just didn't make it into 0.3, which likely means they are coming into 0.4. I actually asked Jonathan a little bit about this in my interview with him recently, and he said that every new Ascendancy class is just getting wilder and wilder. They're just going absolutely ham with the unique design, with the skills, with what the Ascendancy is actually doing, which, fingers crossed, means the Druid is going to get some really whack Ascendancies. However, I must say, this also means I hope that they continue to do what they've done with 0.3 and go back and revisit the old Ascendancies. Because if all the new Ascendancies come into the game are just absolutely fantastic and accomplish so many things that old Ascendancies just can't, they seem boring in comparison, I really hope that they make sure that they bring the floor of those old Ascendancies up. Speaking of things that didn't make the cut, this is a very brief thing. Trial of the Ancestors also didn't make the cut for this update. I was so confident with Act 4 Tota would come in. It's the third Trial of Ascension. It's not coming. They didn't confirm if it would happen in 0.4 like they had with Druid. So I don't know. It might be coming in 0.4 or 0.5. And it's going to be incredibly different from the current two Trials of Ascension. Jonathan stressed that point. I'm guessing it means far less complicated or random focused. Here is another exciting bit of news. The trade UI from the website will be coming into game, so you don't have to go to the trade website to actually search for items. You'll be able to do that in the game itself, so you can do all of your trading without leaving Path of Exile 2, which is just phenomenal. This was my immediate question about the trade, because I like staying in game. I don't like leaving games when I'm playing them. I don't use third-party tools ever, unless you count Discord. So I really want to see that happen in game. They have a design for it. They just weren't able to implement it in 0.3. Assuming all goes well with the new merchant setup in 0.3, we should be seeing actual UI for looking for items in the game in 0.4 is lovely. Speaking of 0.4, if 0.3 was massively focused on character customization, rebalancing, and revamping, 0.4, per all interviews, is going to be extremely endgame focused. Grinding Gear Games knows that players hate towers. They are addressing that in 0.4. How? We have no clue, but they know it's a problem, it's on their whiteboard, and they're going to go in on it in this December patch. Additionally, they understand that the feeling that you don't have control over what you're doing in endgame, that there's just sheer randomness, sucks. And they're also going to address that too. It doesn't sound like they're scaling back on the Infinite Atlas. They're just going to give more tools to the player to traverse the Atlas and have a little bit more control over the mechanics that they are encountering while playing in the endgame of Path of Exile 2, which all sounds great to me. Already, I'm a huge fan of the smoother progression curve that they've created for more casual players, allowing us to access the Atlas passive trees far quicker. That was a big point of feedback I spoke to Jonathan about back in June, and they implemented it. Now, other people also pointed that out, so I was just one voice of many. One more point on endgame. If Abyss is a success, if it's a hit with the player base, they will also be implementing it into 0.4 as a permanent addition to the game, and it might get its own Atlas passive skill tree, just like Ritual, just like Delirium, and all the other mechanics. Right now, it doesn't. Another thing that flew under the radar, in this patch, there were big performance improvements. In fact, the entire renderer was rewritten from scratch for PoE2 in this patch. So if you do experience some issues, some crashes, That's probably why. They've also tackled the European server problem, cutting out a bunch of providers that weren't able to withstand the DDoS attacks which were occurring. So if you're in Europe and you were experiencing terrible server issues during Dawn of the Hunt, those should be lesser in this patch. And this complete rewriting of the renderer that I just mentioned also opens up the possibility for many future performance updates. Jonathan said he used to have much longer load times in PoE 2 on his personal computer. Now at max, they are 5 seconds. That's big. He also claimed that there were FPS improvements. We'll see what happens when we get in game. There's still a bucket of relatively important but small questions that have not been answered by Grind Degree Games that I assume are not in this update, which I hoped were going to be, such as the ability to quickly swap between controller and keyboard while on the computer. I don't know when that's coming to the game. They said it was going to be in with this update. Obviously, I don't think it is. Maybe it will be slipped in there last second. Also, the ability to lock your weapon sets and stuff like that. None of that has been talked about. I'll make sure if I get the chance to speak with GGG again, mid-league, which I will push for, I will bring up that stuff and see when it's happening. Or if, unfortunately, it was somehow scrapped. I don't think that's feasible, though. Okay, so 0.4 is going to be the patch of the Druid, the patch of Endgame, and we'll see what else happens in 2026 when they will likely go into full release. Before we close out the video, though, I need to tell all of you, this patch 0.3 and what's coming in 0.4, complete proof that what you say, that what I say, it matters. Grinding Gear Games is listening to the player concerns, and they are acting on that feedback. Over and over in all these interviews that came out with the launch of 0.3, Jonathan and Mark have expressed that they took every single player concern, they smacked it up on a whiteboard, and they tried to finish out as many of these problems for this update as possible. They provided solutions. Even if the solutions don't work out, at least they're providing solutions. And if the solutions don't work out, then they're going to provide another solution and another one and just keep going until they have a solution that satisfies the bulk of the player base. With Endgame, with characters, with Trials of Ascension, with items, with just everything in the game, I think they're going to continue iterating on this. They care a lot, and they're able to pump out a lot of content and a lot of changes in every single one of these patches. So remember, once you log in to 0.3 next Friday, write down your feedback, make your voice heard, go on Reddit, go in the comments of these videos, go on Twitter, go wherever, the Discord servers, and talk about Path of Exile 2. The devs are listening. They want the game to improve. This patch is pure evidence of that, and anyone fighting against that is a shill of the enemy. That sounded a lot cooler in my head. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. It helps massively in the algorithm. And make sure you watch another video on my channel immediately after this one. Maybe it's this podcast with Dreamcore, Surgog, and Localhole, or maybe it's this interview of me and Jonathan Rogers. As always, have fun and stay sane.